Hi, everybody. Mayor Lou Manzo here again. Hope you're doing well. Wanted to touch base with you today and have a special guest in a few minutes. But before we get to that, I wanted to touch on the topic that is top of mind with everyone right now, which is the election and the voting process. Last week, you may have seen the voter guide that we put out to try and give you some guidance and helpful hints as to what's going to happen and how it will work. Obviously, I've had some questions since then, which are great, and keep them coming. There are some final details that will be sent out to you in the not too distant future before the end of the week, which will identify the drop boxes, which are potentially being adjusted as we speak. And it looks like there will be one in Harrison Township when it's finalized. But one question I've gotten repeatedly is, can I still vote in person? Do I have a choice? And the answer is very simply, yes, you can. Even though it is the objective to have most of these ballots this year in New Jersey and really nationwide cast through a vote by mail process because of the COVID-19 situation, you do have the option to go to a polling place. Yes, there will only be one polling place in most towns. And in our town, that's just going to be Harrison Township Elementary School. And you do have the option to go there and vote in person. So if you get your vote by mail ballot in the mail, which will probably happen sometime early next week, and you choose not to complete it and want to go to the polling place and vote in person, you can do that, and that will be the vote that you cast that will count. If you submit a vote by mail ballot, that will be the vote that you cast that will count. So it is still up to you, and we expect that most people will use the vote by mail ballot option, but understand, and say it one more time, you can go vote in person if you choose to. Okay. The topic that we want to touch on today has to do with a video we've done in the past, a video interview with some of the other township committee members where we talked about the various silos that we live in as far as our responsibilities for the township. And each one of us have our own separate responsibilities, and we report back to each other and to the public at our public meetings on the first and third Mondays every month in our township building. The silo we want to talk about today has to do with one that's very important to every one of us in town, which is how our town develops, what businesses are brought to town, how land is developed, whether it's commercial, residential, what the uses are, and so forth. It's always a very hot topic. Our joint land use board is the governing body over that, and those are first and third Thursday meetings of every month, where everything that we do in town is approved, reviewed and approved potentially at those meetings. The silo of development, redevelopment, and relationships with leadership connected to that has been a silo that I have lived in for my entire 13 years on committee. It's kind of been, my home base and really what my predominant responsibility is. In the last few years, I've taken on a partner in that. And over the years, there have been other committee people that have also served in this role. But in the last few years, that's been Committee Woman Julie DeLaurentis. So I am going to invite her into this conversation. She gets to talk, believe it or not, when I give her a chance. Morning, Julie. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to see you. So I was talking behind your back for a second there in reference to your role in the redevelopment and development of businesses or properties in Harrison Township for the last 3 years. So I just want to touch on some specific things that we've been working on. Obviously, as an aside, the COVID-19 situation has pretty much brought everything to a halt for the last 6 months or so. We are now seeing some of the things that we were talking about coming into 2020 start to gain traction again as everyone settles into this, coronavirus world that we live in. But I want to touch on a few of those things and then talk about what, the role that you play in that. So let me start with major things that are happening and really with our partnerships with towns and that are border our community and from a regional perspective. So on the eastern edge, we have a redevelopment agreement in place with both Mantua and Glassboro. Pittman's involved to a lesser degree with that, with a redevelopment agreement of the entire, I'll call it, eastern border, which includes the western campus of Rowan University, and it includes and encompasses the existing redevelopment project of Richwood, which has been long-standing, long frustrating, let's say, and is evolving as we speak. Julie has become a point person with that and with the other side of town, which has to do with Woolwich and the partnership we have there and joint development interests that we are dealing with on, on that edge of our town. So, Julie, this is kind of a funny question, because if I had to ask you what you see your role as, or how you fit into that puzzle, which for us is a kind of daily process, what would you say your role is?
Well, I would say that my role, for one, on some of these projects, most of them, I'm a point person, day-to-day person. I'm following up with attorneys, different engineering, checking to see progress made, where their approvals are on the county and state level as they go through their process. And I've been very involved with as Lou, as you were talking about, with the land that Rowan owns on both sides of 322, and that is the name of it, the Rowan Regional Redevelopment Partnership. That's Mantua, Glassboro. The county is involved, and of course Rowan, South Jersey Tech Park. We've had developers come in looking at. Altogether, originally there's 600 acres, 300 north of 322, 300 south of, but the hospital bought 100 acres, as you're well aware. That project started before I came on board. So that huge accomplishment, that's yours. And that's a wonderful thing. So there's still 500 acres. We're talking to national and international companies. Rowan wants companies that will benefit Rowan University, their students, internships, work study. It's fascinating. It's a wonderful area there, and we're working together to benefit everyone.
Yeah, so a couple of things, and I think this is lost to the general public, as you would expect, because if you're not in it, you don't really. How could you know? And if you're not attending meetings, which I understand people are busy and they're not up to speed on what's happening at the meetings and how we report on this, but I'm often asked this, and I have been over my entire tenure, like, well, why can't we have, plug in whatever it is, typically Whole Foods, Wegmans, Trader Joe's, things like that. Why can't we get this? Why can't we get that? Well, the reality is that developers buy land, and it's up to them to rent to their tenants. That said, we have been deeply involved with that, especially in the Richwood area, in seeking, certain desired uses, including Wegmans and including Whole Foods, which we've courted for several years. And the bottom line, as I've said in public before, is that those two companies, and again, COVID aside, because that's just, thrown everything into a kind of, complete halt, as I said. But imagine that didn't happen. The answer is always the same from companies like that, which they have a very specific demographic and how they move forward in putting a store wherever they're going to choose to put it. And we have all of those demographics in reference to, level of income and medium priced housing and so forth. The one thing we don't have is the density of population. If you think about it, we know that, because the minute you drive 5 minutes south of, our town, it's pure farmland. So there's no density to the south of us. So that's part of their formula, though, we continue to harp on the fact that it is, the future with the hospital and the university there. So we are still, excited that eventually we'll be able to get one of those desired uses. The other thing that people don't understand is that a lot of this is based on the relationships that we have as far as getting things through and getting things approved through Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection, state agencies, with the relationships that we have in place with both county and state leadership. So maybe speak to that for a minute. You've now had a bird's eye view of how that works these last few years. What would you comment on that and how important that is?
Well, we're working and building relationships. And I have to say, Lou, you know what? You started building, you've really had over 10 years of building the foundation. So I'm coming in with great relationships in place and meeting people at the county and state level. And you're right, it is a working relationship. It's not something that happens overnight. It's taken me I would say 2.5 years to develop great relationships with our partners. And there is a huge approval process with, as you said, the Department of Transportation, county engineering, state engineering. It's a very involved project. So thank you for creating that foundation. And I've definitely benefited from it and will continue to work on our behalf, on the township's behalf.
Well, again, that's a philosophy that was put in place many years ago with this kind of more, I'll call it regional perspective and regional understanding, because of just the way we're all so tied together. So it's not just about what we do in Harrison and Glassboro lives in a silo and what they do in Mantua and Pittman and East Greenwich. We all kind of need to cooperate and work together. So we have partnered with the county in a big way on that, is kind of taking the lead on ensuring that everything that we're considering doing has a regional, perspective included in the decisions that we make. So just now to touch on, and I know that just this week, as a matter of fact, talking about relationships with the county, you attended an event that was recognizing the best in Gloucester County, correct?
Yes, the best of Gloucester County is, and we had many businesses honored by this award. And I was very happy to see, I with COVID, you're right, a lot of projects have been put on hold. I really enjoyed seeing our county counterparts in economic development and just everything we're doing. And we are working with different neighboring municipalities. I think that on both sides of our border, I mean, right? We're working with Woolwich as well on a project. I don't know if you'd like to speak about that some more.
Yeah, there's a time and a place to talk about some of those details, but obviously partnering with our friends in Woolwich has been now, more than about a 1.5-year process on potential projects that would benefit both of us and border both, right on our border in both towns. And I do want to just, as we close here, because we, want to make sure people don't get too bored with looking at us, touch on a couple of specifics. And I've mentioned this in some of the things that I've written, but what we can expect, seeing down the line in the not too distant future between now and even the end of the year, movement on. We know that Dunkin' Donuts is opening, any day now. Beautiful project that changes the look of that corner in a big way. Directly across the street on the triangle vacant lot known as the old Oscar Jenkins gas station site, that developer is coming in to our joint land use board within, if it's not October, will be November, to finalize and seek their approvals to build a gas station there, the gas station / convenience store. They also own the vacant lot in the middle of town on Main Street. They're going to clean that up, take down more than likely the one house that they also own and make it a green space for now. We know that on Main Street, we have several properties the township owns, and we are going through a process of, in some cases, bringing down houses that are not, able to be brought back to their full blossom. That's happening up on the corner of Mill Road, 322 and Main Street across from Harmony Fire District, the pink house on the corner. You'll see that in these next few weeks be turned into a green space. We have a major age-restricted community potentially coming in on the north side of town. They will probably be in front of our joint land use board in November. It's an exciting project that will completely transform what North Main Street looks like, including some of the off-site improvements and sidewalk connectivity that we've always talked about. And as Julie said, these major projects on our borders, and we'll call them Richwood and Woolwich, these are now too soon to talk about specifics, but there are some, very exciting things being discussed, including an involvement of the Richwood project in general, which we've known for a long time. So, Julie's role in all of this has been key. And, I guess I'm going to take a second to publicly thank her for working with me in this silo, because it's something that is tedious. It's ongoing every day, week to week, but we don't always have something to report. And many times what we're talking about doesn't come to fruition just because, sometimes because we're deciding that it's not the most desirable use for our town, because we're not just selling out to a tax rateable here.
Right.
That's something we chose, you know, to not surrender to a long time ago. We're not just going to slap up, you know, commercial ratables for the sake of helping our tax rate. We are going to ensure that the community maintains its charm and everything that we love about this town, but yet bring some of the desirable uses that we have. And yes, eventually that will help with our tax rate. So in closing, Julie, give you an opportunity to put a cherry on it before we leave.
No, well, all I'd like to say is thank you. I think this is a topic that people really don't know a lot about. It's a great question. People do wonder how do things come to be, and we're always looking out for what's best for the township, what benefits our residents, and also complies with our master plan, which has been, you know, you can look online and get all of that information. So I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to people and let them know a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the positive, you know, byproducts of the COVID crisis is the fact that we've found this new medium where we're required to be able to, you know, connect with people and use Zoom meetings and now tape these Zoom meeting interviews, which is something that I think we've now realized we can continue to do going forward. And this is a great way to be able just to speak to people that aren't coming to meetings because they're just not able to and aren't up to date on things like this, where we can, you know, regularly update them on things that are happening and actually be talking to them as opposed to just writing something. So thanks for taking the time today. I'll see you soon. And between now and then, we all remain
Harrison Strong.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.